Because I'm not a dolphin or whale expert, I'm going to turn the commentary over to Mr. O'Barry, who I'm sure has lots to say about the video that's showing on the screen now. Okay.
Well, thank you for coming, and thank you to the Toronto Star especially. We wouldn't be here today talking about this, and we wouldn't have the meetings we've had with local politicians if it wasn't for Linda Diebel and the stories that ran in the Toronto Star. Keeping this issue alive might be difficult after Sunday when Marineland closes, and the media, I think they know the media will move on to other issues. Yeah, this video, so I'm watching this, and I'm reminded that how much captivity for dolphins and other whales is more stressful than any other animal in the zoo, including the deer we saw, and that's because they live in a world of sound. That's their primary sense. Our primary sense is light. We're visually oriented. But for dolphins and other whales, they are incomplete without the sea. And again, it's extremely stressful for them, more so than, for example, if you go to the Toronto Zoo or any zoo in the world and look at the reptile exhibit, the snake exhibit, even a cold-blooded snake with a very small brain is given more consideration than any of these dolphins and whales at Marineland. If you look at the snake exhibit, you'll see that the snake has at least something that's connected to nature. Some grass, some dirt, some tree limbs to climb on, some rocks to hide under and get away from the public. But if you were to go to Marineland and put a face mask on and put your head underwater, you'll notice they are in a bare concrete box. We wouldn't do that to a snake. And that's exactly why the mortality rate is so high. I think there are more than 40 beluga whales that have died at Marineland. And now there are 40 more there. How they're being cared for. And one of the problems, we saw that with the deer, is space. You know, in the wild, and I was just out 7 miles from Key West with a group of wild dolphins with a film crew from Belgium. They had gone to all of the dolphin facilities in the Florida Keys, and they came to my house and said, well, what's wrong with this? Because unless you actually see them in the wild, and a lot of kids, Canadian children, go to Marineland and they've never seen a dolphin in the wild, so they have nothing to relate to. It's hard to see the problem. Unless you're hitting this killer whale here with a baseball bat, you don't see the abuse. But if you see them in the wild, and this Belgian film crew got to do that, it becomes very clear what's wrong with captivity and why it doesn't work. It's a failed experiment. We've been doing this since 1938, and it's a failed experiment. Been coming here since 1991, Marineland. And when I think about Marineland, and I read the Star articles, and I'm reminded, oh, that's still going on. I can't connect a face. Anybody in power, politician in Canada, almost every country I go to, all over the world, I can get a face of somebody in government who's a champion for the cause, a minister for the environment or somebody. I don't get a face here of anybody. We talk about, here we are again, we're going to talk about Marineland, and then we're going to go home and it's going to be business as usual. So somebody has to step up and champion this cause. It's very winnable. And again, you know, we should be doing it for our children as much as the animals. A lot of the places I work, substandard facilities, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Colombia, Brazil, Haiti, they're actually ahead of Canada in terms of protection for marine mammals. I mean, there's no, for country as advanced as Canada, to not offer any protection whatsoever is shocking. So I'm hoping that after Sunday, when this issue moves on, you know, that the public will get in touch with their legislators and ask them to please do something about this issue. Offer some protection. And if you do that, that will send a powerful positive message to the rest of the world about Canada's respect for nature. Relatively speaking, Marineland is the worst. Yeah. Cruel and unusual, unnecessary, should be abolished. So this issue is not just about that orca you just saw in isolation. I think the only place in the world other than Miami, Florida, where you have an orca in isolation. It's about the children who go to these places and come away confused, miseducated. The issue is as much about the Canadian children as it is the dolphins themselves. To teach a child not to step on a caterpillar is as important to the child as it is the caterpillar. So it's kind of like that. Anybody who has ever been to Marineland and has seen that show, or SeaWorld, or the Seaquarium, they're all basically the same. Anyone who has ever seen those shows would have to conclude, if they were honest with themselves, even the teachers who bring these kids there, what they just witnessed was a spectacle of dominance. And it teaches them that dominance is good. Dominance is right. Dominance works. So, if you don't want to do it for the animals here in Canada, do it for your kids. Pass some kind of legislation, something to offer some kind of protection. There is none here, none whatsoever. I could open up, like Rob said, a dolphinarium in my backyard and a swimming pool. Perfectly legal. No problem there. Something wrong with that picture. That's a very popular question. What is the lifespan of dolphins in the wild compared to captivity? We really don't know, because we would have to have the records from that industry to know when they're captured or when they're born in captivity. And I usually don't go down that road, because it's not about the quantity of life. It's about the quality of life. It's about the quality of life. And the dolphins at Marineland aren't really living, they're surviving. Living is doing things. Living is chasing fish. It's not just eating a dead fish. It's the chasing fish. It is the cooperatively feeding and all the things they do. That's what living is. So when you go down this road, well, who can, I could stay alive in this room for probably the rest of my life if you brought food to the door, and I could live in isolation, and I would survive. But I'm not living. At some point, I would like to walk out that door and go for a walk. So I don't want to go down that road of the quantity of life is the quality of life. And there is no quality to life at Marineland for dolphins and whales. And probably all the other animals.
Necessarily a reflection on Ontario being good. It's a reflection on how bad it is in the rest of Canada. We not only lag behind many jurisdictions in the world in Ontario, we do in Canada. We have an antiquated criminal code provisions for anti-cruelty. We have no Federal Animal Welfare Act. We have no Marine Mammal Protection Act. Right across the board, when you look at these kinds of issues, we're lagging behind. So Ontario is better than most other provinces, but it doesn't mean it's good or it's good enough.
Everything is relative. So relative to other places, I think you have to take that into
think in a perfect world, we'd love to see the captivity of animals ended. And I think the beginning point of that, as public attitudes change, would be these problematic animals that you really can't care for in captivity, like whales and dolphins and maybe polar bears, and there are a few other species. But on a more pragmatic level, no, we're looking for legislative change. We're looking for protections. We're looking to weed out all the bad players, to create a system of accountability and rules, and a way for the public to have their complaints legitimately dealt with in a transparent way. So, you know, in the long term, of course, that we'd love to see that in a perfect world. For us, in the short term, I don't know, Rick, you're campaigning for the abolition of.
Yeah, I'm an abolitionist. Keeping I think, and I've thought about this for 40 years. What's the solution? The solution is one, and I work on the dolphin captivity issue primarily, and that'll take the rest of my life. The solution is one, stop capturing dolphins and other whales. Two, those that can be released back in the wild should be, and not all of them can. Three, those that can't be should be taken to a sanctuary in natural seawater, sea pen, and retired with birth control. There is no reason in the world for a dolphin to be born in captivity. If you look at the Marine Mammal Inventory Report, you'll see that the mortality rate is just as high for those that are born in captivity as those captured from the wild, and they suffer from all the same stress-related diseases. So there is no, Duke comes to mind. Anytime I think of Marineland, I remember being here in 1991 and seeing a photograph of Duke. It was a dolphin that was extremely beat up, scarred, face ripped up, eye ripped out, just unbelievable. It was shot undercover at Marineland, and we found a place in the Turks and Caicos where we could have retired Duke. It's a square-mile pen, and John Holder would not let Duke go, and he died there in that same tank. So they can be, that's the solution. Stop the captures, release those that can be, and those that can't be could be retired in a natural sea pen where they can experience the natural rhythms of the sea and the tides and the currents, and live out their life with some dignity with birth control. That's the solution. Is that going to happen in my lifetime? Probably not. But the kind of abuse we see at Marineland is so unnecessary. And our children are watching us all the time. And they see us allowing this and justifying because we call it education. Actually, what they're doing is bastardizing the definition of education. And we all go along with it. There is nothing educational about it, and you only have to look at Japan to see that. Japan has 51 Marinelands, 51 dolphin amusement parks. It's the size of California. And if it was educational, the largest slaughter of dolphins in the world would not be going on in Japan. People would be educated, 127 million people, most of whom have been through those facilities and have been educated and sensitized, and now they're going to protect the dolphins. Well, where are they? I was just there last week at the Cove. I couldn't find one Japanese person out of 127 million. So there is no connection between stupid dolphin tricks and conservation. And that's how they justify it in America, and in Canada, and in Europe. And the goal is to make sure that Marineland doesn't open again next year. It shouldn't open. It's abusive. It's extremely cruel and unusual. And it should be abolished. There's nothing wrong with abolishing that kind of cruelty. When that level of cruelty is absolute, we should oppose it absolutely. There's nothing radical about that.
Someone said to me this morning, actually asked, what's the purpose of this press conference? And I think we certainly wanted to get on the record our feelings about the CASA report and its findings, saying that we feel it's basically a public relations exercise. But perhaps more importantly, we feel it's incumbent upon us as advocates for these animals to do whatever we can to make sure that the message stays out there in a consistent way. So certainly us at Zoocheck are capitalizing on Mr. O'Barry being here in Canada. He'll be attending a large protest, actually more like almost like a festival now, I think, in Niagara Falls on Sunday, put on by a group called Marineland Animal Defense. We felt it was a wonderful opportunity to reiterate the fact that this is a long-standing problem, that it's not just restricted to Marineland, as bad as those problems may be, and we are encouraging the government, and particularly the Premier's office, because without the Premier's political directive, we've seen this in the past, nothing's going to happen. So we certainly are here to encourage the Premier and everybody else who is part of the government to get on board, to do something, to finally, once and for all, after 30 years, to solve this problem. And if they do that, I think it will make them look like heroes and everybody else who's involved. So I think it's a win-win-win-win, no matter which way you look at it, if action is taken. And it's just going to be a continuation of misery and effort and debate if they don't. So thanks to Mr. O'Barry for coming out, for doing what he's doing. And like he said, after October 7th, when Marineland closes, this is still going to go on, and hopefully there will be champions in government that will make sure the political side of it goes on as well. So thank you for attending.